Okay, think like a magazine. I always do this, but I go into Barnes & Noble and I'll sit there for like, I don't know, 2 hours or something, get a coffee, and look through travel magazines, or look through destination wedding magazines, or whatever magazine you want to be in, okay? And look through it and see what pictures they're looking for. Like, what's their style? What are they writing about? You know, I do that all the time, and I think people just probably think I'm like a psychotic bride because I'm looking through like every single wedding magazine for like 2 hours, and I'm really, you know, I'm like, no, I'm really a photographer, you know, but it's, I like to research, you know, what's going on out there, because my style is very vibrant and colorful, and it doesn't always match, like, you know, it doesn't always match the magazine that I want to be in. Like, Martha Stewart is not necessarily going to, like, publish my stuff. It's not her style. You know, magazines are, like, set in their ways, and they have a very specific formula. And so if you think like a magazine, they're going to publish you. If you're going to, great, you can take all your funky, do all the stuff you do, but you have to make sure that you also give them the pictures they want. Like, you have to give them the detailed shots and the things that they want, and, you know, think about the layout that they're doing. And I'll tell you, we're all photographers and we love our bridal portraits and stuff. You look at a magazine, there's maybe 2 pictures of the bride and groom, and the rest is all details. So you need to submit that way. You need to submit 75% of your stuff to a magazine as details, and the rest is, you know, portraits. So you have more of a chance of getting in the magazine. So just think like a magazine. Look at, see what they're looking for, see what their style is, and, you know, add that to how you shoot. Create environmental portraits. So this is, I don't know if you guys know what an environmental portrait is, but just to give you a recap, it's like shooting a picture with context clues. So for instance, Miss Leslie Durso here is a fabulous vegan chef, and I could take an awesome headshot of her and she'll look beautiful, but that doesn't like tell anybody what she does for a living. So if I, you know, throw her in a kitchen and have her like whip up some food, we're doing something really cute, then they're like, oh, she's a chef. And so just having that environmental portrait, she's in her environment, she has context clues in it. Take that idea and apply it to a destination wedding or your own wedding. So here we are, we're shooting in, I'm going to use an example of when we were shooting a wedding in Tanzania. We were in the island of Zanzibar, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful beach, and, you know, I could take a picture of the bride and groom out on the beach, and it's awesome. It'll be nice. But anybody, it could be a beach anywhere. Like, anybody could look at it and say, oh, okay, well, you know, that's great. It's a pretty beach. Like, why is a destination wedding magazine going to publish that? That could, you know, doesn't tell them where it is. So whenever I go to a place, I like to check it out for a day or so beforehand, scout locations, find out like the vibe of the place, like what's going on here. And when we were walking around, we were noticing all these Maasai warriors, these African warriors, and the guys that like spear hunt and live in the bush and like kill lions with their bare hands. These guys were the security at all the hotels, because, I mean, who's better to be your security guard than some guy that can kill a lion with his bare hands, right? So these guys are like all at the, you know, at these resorts everywhere, but they're like the real deal. They like leave their job and they go walk back to their hut village and like live there. And I'm like, this is awesome. I want to get to know these guys. So I went up to them and we like made friends with them, and, you know, we would take pictures of them. They would join in and help us with, take pictures of us, and like, you know, they were like became like our little assistants. And every day, Sarah and I would walk out of our hut and they'd be like, Laura, Sarah, you know, and they walk us everywhere. They're like our security guards. But what was awesome about that was that they gave us like the inside scoop. So they made us friends with the local fishermen, because we saw these beautiful boats that you that they would fish every day, and we're like, I was like, wonder if they could bring one of those boats in that could pose the bride and groom on it, like on the wedding day. So he went and talked to them, and then we like paid him $5, and they brought this boat in. And then they also, I was like, would you guys be willing to come back like this time tomorrow and like pose with the bride and groom and do some fun stuff? So they totally did. We did it on here. So here's an example of the boat. So they brought this, fishermen brought these really cool boats in, and I don't know if you can read, well, you can't really read it, it's in Swahili, but like if you see it, it's in a foreign language, right? So it's like context clues like that. We're like, okay, they're sitting in this, what are these weird boats and what's that language? And so all of a sudden you are adding these context clues that are telling you where you are, and that's what's going to make you interesting to a destination wedding, not only client, but to a magazine, because they want to like, you know, they're showing about this location in like 10 pictures. You know, you need to be able to tell them that you're in a really cool location. Okay, here are the Maasai guys. So they came and joined us while we were doing the portraits. And again, that could have been a really cute portrait of them on the beach together, but, you know, throw in some African warriors and all of a sudden you're in Zanzibar. So this was cool too. They stood on either side of the aisle with their spears when they were walking down the aisle. And I thought that, I mean, just we became friends with them, and they just were like, did anything we wanted, you know, and it was just so cool to be able to have that as part of it. They had the women, like, remember like Coming to America, that movie, the women with the headdresses that were like throwing the flowers wherever they go? They were at the wedding, and so yeah, they were there too. That was pretty cool.
Can I ask a question on
Yeah.
that? So, because of your relationship, you were able to have these people be in the wedding on
Yeah.
the day? Clearly.
Yeah, we obviously asked the bride and groom and stuff, but yeah.
That's my question. How flexible was the bride in that change to plans? You know,
Yeah.
people are pretty uptight.
Well, you know what, if they're in a destination, usually they're pretty kind of lax, but like if they're uptight about it, obviously you don't force an issue to happen, but you know, you can just suggest an idea or say, hey, I scattered out these really cool places, or I talked to these guys and they're willing to do this, like how do you feel about it? Or would you be willing to do some cool pictures, like I know a magazine's gonna love this. That's a great way of saying it too, like this is gonna be so publishable if we could get a couple of these shots, you know, and they're like, okay, and, you know, and it's true though, but you know, obviously you have to be aware they are the client ultimately, and you can't like just throw some like African warrior in the picture without like talking to them first. But you know, but usually like I like to be, I'm really proactive. I like to get there, and I get there the day before, and I'm like, oh my god, I found this really cool door in this place, and then we got to do this, and like I have all these ideas for your portraits, and they're usually into it. And usually you're there, like we were there an entire month, but they hired us again. They saw that I do like adventure photography. So the reason why they didn't hire a local person in Zanzibar was that they wanted to bring the whole bridal party on safari, and they wanted it documented. They didn't even think about it. When they saw that they could have someone there the entire time documenting everything, they're like, wow, that's so much cooler than just hiring someone for the wedding day. Because when you're on a destination wedding, like, it's about the experience, and usually they have events going on for like 4 or 5 days, and so, you know, what's the fun of that if you only have one day photographed? So that's kind of actually I was gonna talk about that, but that's kind of my selling point, how I set myself apart. I say, look, I'm unlimited time, and I will apply that to your entire vacation, wedding, like even, not just one day, if you fly me out there. Like I will have my camera with me 24/7, because I would anyway. I'm in like Zanzibar, why wouldn't I have my camera, you know? So it's, that's my selling point, is that I'm there and I'm documenting everything, and we can do a fun creative shoot 2 days later if they want, yeah.
Sorry, so do you give them a quote based on, like, say if you're gonna be traveling for 7 days as opposed to a trip for 3 days? Do you give custom quotes based on, or is your package just set and it's like?
Well, my packages are all custom. Like you know, you have to take, it's tricky, because with destination weddings, you have to price yourself well enough that they want to still bring you, but they are not like, why the hell am I going to pay $8,000 if I can get someone for $1,500 there? Do you know what I mean? Like it has to make enough sense for like them to fly you out. So they're willing to pay more because they're going to be there, but they're not like, you can't charge, like I can't charge my regular wedding day rate and apply that times 7. Like they're never going to hire you. So for me, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get these amazing pictures. I'm going to have to travel, which I love to do anyway. And what I usually tell them is like, look, my wedding day rate's the same. If you want me there longer, you just have to pay for my food, my lodging, and all that stuff for longer. And I usually just do that. Like, it's just extra like travel costs for them, but I don't actually charge extra.
Do you feel like you could be taken advantage of a bit? Do you feel like?
I mean, if they want to be there for like a month or something, I'd be like, yeah, no, I can't, you know. In this case, we were there for a month, but but that's because they created this amazing trip for us, and it was awesome. It was worthwhile going. But no, I haven't felt like I've been taken advantage, because like if you're gonna fly that far, you want to stay anyway. You'd want to stay and have like a fun trip. So, you know, and you would have your camera with you anyway. So it's only going to make their pictures and your pictures in your portfolio better. So I justify it that way. Like some people like have kids and they can't get away for weeks at a time, and it just wouldn't maybe make sense for them. But I would say, you know, and I'm not talking like they're always long trips. Sometimes it's a matter of flying in for the day or staying an extra 2 days and just, you know, making things easier. So, but yeah, you know, you just have to work it out and see what makes sense for you.
So can you give us a range of prices for like 3 or 4 a day?
I just tell them, you know, like, hey, tell me what your travel costs are, what is the airfare, and we'll build that into the package. And you know, if you want to hire me, like if you want me there for 5 days, you want to put me up for 4 extra days, I'm more than happy to. I'll be there with my camera, you know, I let them know that it's like, I'm not at their beck and call 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
but like, if, you know, like, hey, you know, I'd love to make it a trip too, I can sit by the pool, but if there's like some event or a dinner or something going on, I'll have my camera, I'll shoot some fun stuff while we're all at the pool. You know, I make it known that I'm not like on call 24 hours a day during that time, but that I'd be more than happy if they put me up for extra days to have my camera with me, and, you know.
So would that be like $4,000 to $8,000 for that 4 or 5 day period?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I would say usually like it averages out. I mean, if you want to price it in your head, for me, I usually do like a base price, and then for every extra day, I'll charge like $1,000, and then that's how I come up with my magic number for them. Usually, it can be whatever you want to be. It has to be whatever you're comfortable with. Like if you're excited to make like $500 a day, then and go on this amazing trip, then you know do $500 a day. So it just has to be whatever you know. Like if you're blocking out 2 weekends and you could lose a whole wedding on that second weekend to do it, then you have to, you know, think about that and maybe price that accordingly.
Do you carry along like model releases or consents, or do you compensate in any way, like the
We-
gentleman that?
We pay them, like we tip them, and then but model release, unless you're like selling it to National Geographic or something, they don't mind about. They usually magazines only want the model releases for the bride and groom. But I actually built in all. That's like a good question. In all my contracts, I have written in there that I am allowed to use their image, you know, for any type of magazine promotional purposes, whatever. Like when they sign my contract, they've already signed a release to me. But yeah, like if I was to resell this image, like through National Geographic, or want to use it for stock photography, then I would need like that girl in the background and the guy next to him and the African guy's like signature. But I do travel with releases, but usually it's for like commercial or fashion shoots, not really with weddings. Yeah, that's a good point. There's an app on the iPhone. Well, Sarah does, because I don't have an iPhone. But there's an app that is a model release app, and you can literally have them sign it right there on your phone for that. All right, so I'm going to show. Yeah, feel free to ask me more.
I have a question.
Oh yeah.
When you're like bringing other people there with you, is that like an option for them, or how do you account for, like if you have 3 people going, obviously that's more expensive than just an airfare.
Yeah, well, they obviously have to pay for extra people if they do come. A lot of times you know, if I brought Sarah, we just decide what makes sense for her, because it's really hard to quote a second person. Like they'll pay for all their travel costs, but you're not going to pay like a full rate for a full second person. Like, I mean, sometimes they do, it just depends. You kind of have to just customize all of it. So you have to say, okay, what do I normally pay a second shooter? If I could give them that day rate and then just travel costs, it would be worth it for them to bring someone out there, because ultimately it's not that much more expensive. And then like we can share a room, so they wouldn't have to pay extra hotel. It's really just airfare and, you know, a couple of like, you know, a few extra $100 extra a day.
If they say no about the
Yeah.
other person, would you still go by yourself?
Say that again?
If they say no about the extra people, do you still take?
Oh yeah, I'll still go by myself. It's just fun to have an extra person. But just another point too, like if you wanted to be able to like find a local person to come help you out, like you can always think about that. If you go alone, you can always contact other photographers in that area and ask them to shadow or help you out on a destination shoot. I'm sure they'd love to. The other point too that I'll get to is, where are we at right here? Like a losing room. Contacting magazines before you go on a trip, and before you, you know, get them excited about it beforehand. You can contact the magazine and say, hey, I'm about to shoot this insane wedding in Tanzania, and blah, 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 I can't even wait to share these pictures with you, and get them excited about it. And you can get them like, not necessarily, they can't say yes until they see your pictures, but you could already get a magazine on board before you go on a trip, like just by getting them excited about it. And so you could also use that as leverage too. Like we've used that as leverage at hotels or for finding help and being like, hey, you know, we have this magazine interested in publishing this, and you know, like blah, 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 like we'd love this. And sometimes the hotels will knock down their price, or they'll put up somebody for free. Sometimes they'll help out the bride and groom with lowering their costs because we're bringing in like a magazine or a blog, like, hey, we're gonna blog about this, or hey, we're gonna do that. And so sometimes you can help out the brides and grooms and like offset some of their travel costs by doing that.